I have the watch and I cherish it, and but that was the watch.
Framed somewhere, or
No,
do you
I wear it.
You do wear it.
I wear it.
Okay.
Oh yeah, and I get a lot of compliments on it. And I
People
go,
notice?
this was the watch Roy Scheider wore in Jaws.
I feel like that's even better that people notice it.
Yes,
that it's from Jaws.
See, you never thought you'd hear this in the podcast.
No,
right?
yeah.
No.
Welcome to Sips and Clips. My name is Lian McFalls.
And I'm Michael Schusterman.
Today we have a very special guest and friend of mine, Eric Bergman. Unfortunately, the original intro we recorded has been lost to the sands of time. In the atmosphere somewhere.
That sound effect.
So you won't be able to hear the delicious drinks we were sipping on, such as my strawberry mango smoothie, Eric's raspberry sparkling ice, and his love of electrolyte tablets. And I'm sure you can guess what Michael was sipping on. An almond latte that he finished even before we started. Don't worry, though. You missed his usual almonds are drying up the California Valley joke. What a consistent man.
It's a consistent joke.
Let's dive into how Eric first got interested in the film industry.
So we were talking about how Jaws is one of my favorite films. Scared me.
Jaws is one of your favorite movies.
Didn't go back in the ocean for 12 years. I was terrified of the ocean. Jaws, I was 7 years old. I was like, who goes to the movies at 7 years old to see a film like that, right? But my whole brother and all my friends in the neighborhood made me go, and they said that if you don't go, you're going to have to sit outside for 2 hours and wait for us. So I said, okay, I'll see Jaws. How bad can it be?
How bad can it be?
This is pre the R rating, or is this?
Yes. Well, this was PG.
It
The R was around. They made it PG because they wanted more of an audience.
Jaws was
PG.
Oh, my
There was no
gosh.
PG-13.
Well, because Temple of Doom is the first PG-13 movie.
So basically, we were supposed to go see a movie called Logan's Run in 1975.
Oh, yes, Logan's
okay?
Run.
And the guy in the box office, he was so frightened that we were under 17, which we were, okay? That we were going to go stay in there was the days of the double feature at the movies.
Oh, yep.
Okay?
Yeah.
So there was a double feature of Logan's Run, and it was a movie called Survive, which was rated R, okay? Logan's Run was PG, and then they would go into the next movie. Now, Survive was the precursor of the movie where the soccer team crashes on the top of the mountain and they eat each other, cannibalism, and it was rated R, okay? So they didn't want us to see this, okay? So they said you can only see Jaws because it's rated PG, okay?
Yeah.
So those were the times where a couple of theaters, right? So we saw
Right.
Jaws, and I was so scared. So I went and saw Jaws. I mostly looked at the exit sign in back. So basically, I, in my older age, became a watch aficionado. And I always loved the watch that Chief Brody is wearing, Roy Scheider's character in the movie. And it's a Hamilton watch that was that came out in like 1952, 53. And it was this really cool watch that I always admired. And I did a lot of research, and I found it, and I read a lot about it. And I found it on eBay. And the reason Roy Scheider's character wore it was because it had a solid back of the watch, the gold solid back. So water wouldn't get in. And that is the watch he is wearing when he is on the Orca and he shoots the shark. He shoots Bruce and says, "Smile, you son of a bitch." And you see the watch. I've taken pictures on it, send it to friends. So I have the watch. It's a different color with the numbers, but it's fine. It's still the same watch. It's close as I can get, but I got it on eBay. The guy who sold it to me was a real... let's just say he didn't tell me certain things. I take it out of the envelope, and the back falls off. The winder falls off. I said, okay, I got to take it to my guy Berge in Sherman Oaks, who's my watch guy. So he took care of it. They cleaned it, and they gave me a new bezel and all good. And so now I have Roy
You
Scheider's
earned this watch. I feel like it's not like, you know.
I mean, and what a scene.
I should have wore the watch today.
It's all right.
But you wear it.
I do.
Wear it.
I don't.
Oh my
I
gosh.
wear it. You know, it's funny you asked me that because it's like sometimes, like I also have, I play a lot of vinyl records, LPs.
Yeah.
And sometimes I buy used records, okay?
Yeah.
And I've been looking for a certain record by Bruce Springsteen, which is called Nebraska, and one of my favorite Bruce album, and I finally found it, and it says, still in shrink wrap, Okay, and I'm like, do I open it or do I
you
keep it
keep
shrink
it shrink-
wrapped
yeah.
or do I open it? It's kind of like the watch. Do you wear the watch? I go,
Yeah.
I haven't opened up the shrink wrap yet. Do I open up Nebraska? I want to open up Nebraska, but right now it's still in the shrink.
I know people
Yeah.
who they're really into Legos and they buy the same Lego set twice so they can keep it in the box
Sure.
and then they can build one.
Yeah, sure.
They got to have both.
That's actually really
Exactly.
smart.
Yeah.
Okay, so you grow up in LA. You're
Yeah.
from New York. You're born in New York. Grow up in LA. You're into movies. When career-wise was like, what was your first movie? What was the first job you got in the industry?
Yeah.
Did you go to school for this?
Okay, so I went away to college. I got away from it. I wanted to get away from LA. And I went away to college in the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Okay. And I knew that I wanted to do something with film.
Did you have any family members that were in film? Okay.
No,
it was
so
just
we'll get to that, but
Yeah,
that's why
yeah.
it was so hard for me to get into it, because
Okay.
a lot of times a lot of people have nepotism and it helps them get into the business. Okay.
Right.
So that was a whole another issue. So I went to college and they had a great film society in Madison and I was seeing more movies with my friends, and things I'd never seen, like The Graduate and The Godfathers for the umpteenth time, and we would see all these movies like The Untouchables. I'm going back to the 80s and Heathers, and we would always do movie lines with my high school friends and all that kind of stuff. So then when I was in college, I was a history major, and then I became also a communication arts. I got into the communication arts department, and I took a lot of film classes, a lot of theory, stuff like that. Was I making movies at that time? No, not really. I was learning a lot about it in books, and I felt that I wanted to pursue it. I just didn't know what part of the business I wanted to be in, and you really can't learn about the business through a book. You have to learn it by working
And doing
and
it, yeah.
experience, right? So I graduated college, and it was a hard time. I broke up with my girlfriend. I was out of college. I was back home, which was not a good experience. You learn to live alone, then you're back home, and my dad, he suggests, he goes, what are you going to do in the film industry? I go, I don't know. I got to try to figure it out. And my dad's like, well, why don't you get some kind of practical job? And those were the days I was 23 years old, 22, 23. Those were the days I listened to my father. So my dad's like, go get like a management training program, right? I just come out of college. I'm like, all right, Dad, sure. What am I going to do? What else am I going to do? So I get a job at this company selling loans to people who can't afford them for houses, okay?
Okay.
Did it for a month, and then I quit. And my father's like, why'd you quit the job before having a new job? Because I want to pursue the film industry. I want to be in the film industry. I want to do it. And then my very good friend from college, who's from Chicago, he wanted to be a screenwriter, and he moved out to LA with his brother to work in the film industry, and they asked me to be their roommate. And that's what kickstarted. So 6 months, I'm out of my parents' house, moved into an apartment. I had to work, get jobs to be able to pay my rent.
Yeah.
I didn't get things on a silver platter. It's like, pay your rent, pay your utilities, you're on your own. Okay, my dad helped me with car insurance. I couldn't afford it.
Yeah,
he helped me
yeah.
with health insurance. I couldn't afford it. Okay,
Right.
so I'm paying my rent, but we had to have cable. Okay?
Right.
So we're in the apartment together, and Jeff left after a year. Michael and I then went and had to get a smaller place because we couldn't afford a 3-bedroom, just the two of us. So I was doing temp jobs. Mike was working like at Dick Clark Productions and stuff like that. And he got me a job there doing some stuff, did whatever I can do. Okay, finally.
Was it temp jobs just
like, were they
anywhere
PA
or
jobs?
in the industry? Just any
in
kind
the
of-
industry, anything, like a receptionist at a production company.
Okay,
or
yeah.
or
An
like
office production assistant or whatever.
do
it was.
anything.
Yeah.
I kind of worked with these agencies that would place you in different film, TV
that's
type
cool.
stuff.
Yeah,
okay?
I had a friend that did that.
Yeah,
in the
I even
beginning.
did extra work
Yeah.
on Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. Okay,
Big Adventure?
You could see me in the second
Really?
one. In the second one, yeah, I'm in the concert scene at the end.
Oh my god.
Sitting in the first row.
That's great.
It's when I was lifting weights. I had big muscles. Wearing they liked my look, so they gave me a shirt and wardrobe there. So I'm at Magic Mountain for 2 days, eating craft service, working. I just wanted anything to do with the film industry.
Right, anything.
So finally, my stepbrother's girlfriend said, hey, they called me Ricky. I grew up Ricky. They're like, Ricky, my friend Darcy, she works at this company called Fox 9 The Movies, and she's an assistant to one of the executive producers there. They're looking for a PA. And I said, would you be interested? I said, yeah, of course I would be interested, okay? So this is now August of 1991. I'm 23 years old, and basically I got the interview, and I got the job. I was making $300 a week, plus mileage, and what I had to do was schlep, pick up lunches. I learned the dub equipment, and I was doing dailies on VHS tapes, okay? I was learning about post-production. I was getting my...
So you were a post PA?
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
I was getting the head of the post department. I was getting him his lunches. I was picking up his cleaning. He and I got a really nice relationship. And he would ask me if I would take him to the airport in those days. And he would give me a little extra money on the side.
Yeah.
He'd ask me, hey, Rick, can you go to my house and bring in my trash cans and do my sprinklers, you know? And I was like, of course I will. Those types of things.
Yeah.
Build a relationship.
Yeah. So I did that, and this company was called Fox Night of the Movies, and basically Rupert Murdoch just came out with the Fox Network.
Yeah.
And I was Xeroxing scripts, and I was dealing with dailies. I was picking up film elements, okay?
Yeah.
And those were the days that we were on film, okay?
Yeah.
And I was learning about film, and that was what was really cool.
Were you guys cutting on chems?
Yeah, I believe we were.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we were. We also were working on like the first non-linear type stuff that was really primitive.
Okay,
like
yeah.
the three-quarter tape.
Oh, three-quarter tape.
Three-quarter
like
tape.
tape.
There was no
Stuff like that.
Avid. There was no Lightworks.
Yeah.
Okay, it was like
Okay.
tape to tape. Okay,
Yeah.
and we were still on VCR, VHS dailies,
Yeah.
and we had a whole switcher in the back that I learned how to do all of the buttons to record everybody's dailies. Everybody wanted to watch dailies, so I did all that.
Oh, yeah.
And then I had that job, and then I got laid off. And I was scared. And I didn't know if I was going to get another job. And then I got a job the next Monday. I got a job at Land of the Lost.
Oh, my gosh.
I got a post PA job on Land of the Lost for about a month. And I was schlepping out to Santa Clarita. And I had to do the dailies. And I would have to take a three-quarter machine and take it out to the set. And I would have to show them the dailies in the trailer.
Yeah.
I'd have to eat my food really fast. From the truck, and then I'd show them dailies, and then I had to take the machine back to Santa Clarita. It was like 100 degrees out there. It was summertime.
Jesus.
But these are the things you do, right?
Of course,
100%.
yeah.
And it was fun, and I was at the set. So then that job ended, and then I went to another company like the Fox Night of the Movies called Wilshire Court Productions. More office work than schlepping all over the city. And I was like a step up. I wasn't so much schlepping as much. Then I finished that job, and then 1993 was here, and I landed my first feature, and then everything changed.
Wow.
And I met my mentor.
What did you do were you a post PA on the feature?
I was a
or what
post PA, I
your-
was a post assistant, I was a post coordinator, and I was his assistant.
Oh,
was the
wow.
And assistant to the producers. I did everything. And my office was in a kitchen in an apartment building in Beverly Hills. I
Amazing.
had to get the refrigerator.
What was the movie?
It was called Only the Strong, and it was
Okay.
a negative pickup by Fox. Yeah. So I was working with Fox, and that's where I met my mentor. His name was Michael Harker. And basically, I interviewed before him, January of 93, and they said, do you know how to deliver a movie to Fox? I had not the concept, but I said, yes, I know how to do it. No problem. Okay? I learned that you need to say yes in life.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
You get the job,
You figure it out.
you figure it out.
Figure it
Okay?
out.
And I give people that advice all the time.
Yeah,
Okay?
I tell you that too.
So I was on the show, and then they're like, we can't just do this with Eric. We need to hire somebody who's a post supervisor. So I thought I was going to lose my job. Okay, and they were just going to bring Michael in. Michael said to them, I need Eric. So
Yeah.
he saved me. Okay.
Wow.
And Michael
Yeah.
and I got very close, and he took me under his wing, and he taught me post-production, and I was scheduling ADR, and I learned about the elements, and I hung out in the editing room. It was really an experience. I was on the mix stage,
Wow.
and I was over at Skywalker Sound, and I was like, oh my God, I've made it into the big time.
Yeah.
Oh, that's one thing I want to mention. When I started my first movie, I went on the Fox lot. I had to pick up the mail at the Fox lot for the executives, and I felt like I was in the big time. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm on the Fox lot.
Yeah, yeah.
And I had my beeper, okay, and I'm on the Fox lot, and I was like, I grew up in this area, and I've never been on the Fox lot.
Yeah.
So now I'm working in the film industry, and I'm on the Fox lot picking up mail.
Oh, my
Driving my
gosh.
car through, they're letting me in. It was
Yeah.
like, wow.
That's how I felt. The first movie I did was on the Sony lot, which is the old MGM
Yeah,
lot.
yeah.
And just being on there for the first time.
Sure.
Just going around and it's like they've updated it, but it still
Right.
looks like
Oh,
it's
yeah.
from 1942.
Yeah.
Right? Like so you're driving around in a little golf cart, being
Yeah.
like, oh my God, they filmed Wizard of Oz here.
That's
Oh
right.
my God, like this is where.
That was the same for me on the Batman. Because
Yeah.
also our offices were right next to the water tower.
Yeah, so it was really neat. So I'm on Only the Strong, and Michael and I got really tight, and I wanted to be on the ADR stage. I wanted to be on the sound stage. I wanted to be in the editing room. I wanted to be everywhere post was happening. And I'd see Michael do his job, and I would say, shit, this looks really hard. I don't know if I could ever do this. It's like, this is scary.
It's a tough job.
So basically, we did that movie, and then it ended. And then I went up to Northern California, to
Yeah.
Marin County, to Corte Madera, to go visit my aunt and uncle, just to take a little hiatus for myself, a little break. I didn't know when I was going to work again. So I drove up with my bike, and I get a phone call that weekend, and it's Michael. Michael's like, Ricky, I need you back in L.A. on Monday. I have a job for you.
Whoa.
And my uncle was pissed. He wanted me to stick around, right? I said, Uncle Stuart, I got to go. It's
Hollywood's calling.
Yeah.
I got a job. Now, this was really cool, okay? Because what it was they were editing a TV version of Dances with Wolves. And Dances with Wolves was my favorite film. I loved it. I'm like, oh my God. Dances with Wolves TV version? Oh my God. So I worked with Bill Hoy on that.
Bill Hoy.
Okay. So I drove back to Los Angeles. I had to meet one of the assistants working in Kevin Costner's company at the time. It was called TIG. And we went to Warner Brothers, and I had to pick him up, and we had to go to the warehouse in like Sun Valley, and we had to pick up all of the B negative on film and loaded my Toyota 4Runner with thousands of feet of film.
Of negatives. The original negatives?
Oh my God.
Wow.
Did it all fit?
It did.
That would scare the shit out of me.
I wish I had a cell phone at the time. And I could have taken a picture of this. My car was packed. These are all the experiences. So, got all of the film.
Also, terribly flammable.
Yeah.
And
it was hot.
Negative.
And it was hot. It was July, August. It was hot.
Like miles of feet of negative film in the back of my car would terrify the crap out of me.
And the best is when I went to TIG at Warner Brothers, I had to hang out there for a little, and I walked into Kevin Costner's office, and I was just walking around, looking in his office. He was down in New Mexico doing Wide Earp. So he wasn't there. And it was great. And I was logging all the negative and everything, and it was a great job. And then that ended, and then I was out of work, and Michael didn't have anything for me. I became reliant on him, and that's what happens, okay? You become reliant on people, like editors, okay?
Yeah.
You want them to get a job because then you know you're going to work. Now, my wife was an assistant editor, and she worked with an editor, and she always waited for him to get his next show, and then she'd have a job. She didn't want to have to take another show because she didn't want to lose that relationship, okay? And I didn't want to lose the relationship with Michael.
Yeah.
Well, I got through a little rough patch after Dances, and I had to take a job in the meantime because I had to pay my rent.
Right.
So I got a job at a trailer house. And
which house?
It was called New Wave Productions.
Oh, okay.
And it wasn't what I wanted to do, but I needed a job. At the time, I thought maybe I wanted to move into editing. Okay, and learn the Avid. Now the Avid is out, and the Lightworks are around now. And I was there for about 6 to 8 months. I was not happy. Yeah. So I said, you know what?
You liked the producing part.
Yeah. I said, I'm going to leave this job. I said, this is not for me. So I left the job. I tried not to burn bridges, and I left the job, and there was nothing for me. And it was November 94. And I went to go work at a department store. I worked at a store which is now Macy's, but it was called Bullock's. And I sold polo clothes, and I made commission, and I was able to afford my rent. But it was fine, and I enjoyed it. And I met some really nice people. And then it was December, and Michael called me and says, I'm going to need you in January. So Michael and I started together back in January of 95, and that was a busy year. We did a lot of movies together that year, and we were working at a place over in West LA on Bundy, and he had his office, I had my office, I had a computer. I mean, I felt like I really hit the big time, okay?
Yeah.
And I was also schlepping and picking up payroll for editorial, but I was also doing assistant duties. I was his coordinator, and I think I got credit on 4 movies that year that we worked on together. We just kept churning them out. So I was there with Michael for 2 years, and we did about 6 movies together in those 2 years.
Wow.
So I got 6 feature credits on my resume with Michael, and worked with some pretty cool directors. I was like on cloud 9.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot one of my projects with Michael in 93. That was The Crow. Brandon Lee.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's where I learned a lot about sound. And one of the editor's name was Dov Honig. His assistant, Matt, said, Eric, I need your help. I need you to do something. I was like, what is it? I need you to load the Moviola, okay? I had no idea how to load a Moviola. I was like a deer in the headlights. I was scared, okay? So I said, okay, no problem. I'm looking for editors. I'm looking for assistants. assistant editors. Where are the assistant editors? I need assistant editors to help me. I found somebody. I said, John, can you do me a favor, please? Can you load the Moviola? I have no idea how to load a Moviola. Can you teach me? So we got it done. So those are the types of things that scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Okay? Because the first assistant editor is like looking for me to load the Moviola. So The Crow was another feature that I was able to kind of be a post-PA on and schlep back and forth with the sound. So I learned a lot about sound, and I learned about how important sound is in the post-production process.
Yeah.
So thank God Charlie Chaplin understand that we need to talk. So flash forward back to Michael. Okay, so Michael and I worked for 2 years together, and then finally a phone call came in from a mutual friend of ours named Scott. And Scott said to Michael, we need somebody to post 6 movies for us. They were at Orion Pictures, and they were working with a company called Motion Picture Corporation of America. They had a deal together. So Michael's like, we need somebody to come in, and do you know of anybody? And Michael's like, maybe Ricky can do it. Maybe this would be a good jump starter for him to become a post supervisor. So he and I had a conversation, and I had a conversation with Scott, and he goes, are you ready for this? And my pay with Michael was going up, and then my pay went up more with this opportunity. So I was like, wow, I'm going to be making a lot of money.
Yeah.
In those days, I was like, wow, this is a lot of money, you know? So this was now 1997, January, and I was post-supervising for the first time by myself, and I was doing 6 movies at the same time.
Wow.
And Michael's like, I'm here if you have any questions, and you'll sink or you'll swim. Yeah. So it was rough. It was rough. I was working long days, and I was just trying to get them done one by one. But slowly, I did the whole year, and they were...
Each movie finished.
They were finishing. I was delivering them. And then Orion kind of went out of business. Their library was bought by MGM, and then Orion went out of business. And then I went on to one movie after that and made more money on that movie than I'd ever made in my life.
Wow.
More movie, one film than 6 movies.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay. And I got hired on this movie called Very Bad Things. Peter Berg directed it, and I got to work with him and an editor named Dan Leventhal. Dan Leventhal's gone on to do a lot of the Marvel movies.
Yeah.
Okay. And we worked together on that. So after Very Bad Things, I took a break and I went to Europe by myself. I needed a little break. So I went to Europe for a month, and I went to 9 countries, and then I came back, and there was a potential strike, and it was very rough to get a job. Well, Michael, my old boss, I wasn't his assistant anymore because now I was post-supervising. I was looking for post-supervising jobs. It was 1998 now. And Michael said, Ricky, there's a movie. I can't do it because it's just, they're paying nothing. I said, are you interested? I go, yeah, I'm interested. It's better than unemployment. I'll do it. So I interviewed and got the job. It was called The Big Tease and was a negative pickup from Warner Brothers. So that started my Warner Brothers relationship.
Warner Brothers, yeah.
And that movie was great because I met Bill Daly. Yeah. Bill Daly is a mutual friend of mine and Lian's, and introduced me and Lian. Bill used to be the senior VP of Post at Warner Brothers. So Bill and I got very close. The thing that was great about this movie was I met Bill, got a relationship with Warner Brothers, and I met my wife.
Wow. Yeah.
Andy was working with an editor named Tom Rolfe, and she was still working. She wasn't working with him at the time. She was in between projects, and I found her through some other people that I needed an assistant editor because we needed help conforming film. We were on an Avid. We were conforming film to do preview screenings. So basically, I interviewed a lot of people. We found Andy. And Andy came in. She met with Chris, our editor. Andy walked out and said, hi, Eric. It's nice meeting you. I said, bye, Andy.
Yeah.
Kind of weird that that's going to be my wife, right? And then Chris comes out of the cutting room and says, hire Andy. I'm like, wonderful. So I called Andy back. It was before Labor Day weekend. I said, Andy, you have the job. We'll see you after the holiday. Great. Wonderful. So she came in, and instead of just staying on for about a month or 6 weeks, I talked to Bill, and she stayed on for the duration. Wow. We needed her because of her film expertise. So Andy stayed on, and it helped me procrastinate in asking her on our first date. So then I finished The Big Tease. Andy and I are now boyfriend, girlfriend, and it's just getting really busy in town. And I got introduced to a company called Franchise Pictures. And Franchise Pictures was doing these films, and I met this guy named Jim, and Jim hired me. He met me through the bond company. A lot of times movies are bonded by bond companies, okay? And I was working a lot with a company called film finances. And I had a nice relationship with them, and they would recommend post supervisors to different producer companies, okay? So I met Jim, and Jim put me on a movie called Third Miracle with Ed Harris, and the director was Agnieszka Holland, and I did that movie. And then he asked me, would you do this other movie called The Big Kahuna with Kevin Spacey and Danny DeVito, because the other post supervisor was leaving. I said, sure, I'll do it. So I double dipped, and I got on there and I finished that one, did The Third Miracle, and then we went on to Warner Brothers was now in a deal with franchise. So they were kind of like the negative pickup of the show. So they would produce the show, franchise would produce the show, and Warner Brothers would release it. Then I got married, Andy and I got married in 2000, and then a lot of my colleagues in post-production, they really liked Andy because she knew film and nonlinear. So
she could do both.
Got her lots of jobs. And then I went to a company, Morgan Creek was at Warner Brothers, and they released all their movies through Warner Brothers. So they hired me to do a couple of movies. So they brought me in as a staff guy. So I worked there for 2 years. And then Andy and I started having kids. So she stopped in the biz. And I basically kept going on. And then I just went from movie to movie to movie to movie. To now.
So now you're a post supervisor. You've been post supervisor for many years. I was wondering, I mean, I actually don't fully understand the job, but what is the job?
Well, I basically say that I feel that post-production is probably the most creative part of the process, okay? And I think that's where it all comes together, okay? TV, features, okay? Because when you're a post-supervisor, you're in the middle of it all, okay? You're working with the director, you're working with the producer, you're working with the sound people, you're working with the editor, you're working with the composer, you're working with the lawyers, you're working with the studio. I mean, it never ends, okay?
Right.
So you need to know everything that's going on. That's probably why I have 1,000 Post-it notes on my desk, okay? Because, and especially when you're working on a couple of projects at a time, okay?
Yeah.
You know, you got to know what everything's going at each stage. So the post supervisor has to just manage the schedule. Everybody needs to know what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Communication is the most important part of the job. If there's something happening and somebody doesn't find out, that's a problem. Usually a lot of times when I start on a show, I will start in production. It doesn't mean it has to start when shooting's over. It's not that way because there's so much going on in post during production while you're shooting a movie. So you have to set up the daily flow. You have to set up sound. You have to set up, you have to make sure that the editorial is getting everything they need properly, okay? Proper burn-ins. And a lot of times the post supervisor will be on the workflow discussions, so there's no problems, okay? Post supervisor could be consulted during camera about certain things of how the DI facility is going to want things. So it's wonderful if you can be dealing with stuff and the editor is putting the assembly together and the assistant editor is dealing with the dailies, okay, and syncing all the dailies, and they're getting them from the telecine house and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of times, but then there's other times that I don't start until actually post. Yeah. And that's pretty much when production's wrapped and we are working on the assembly and we're working on the director's cut, okay? And I'm making deals and we're setting up the sound deals. I'm doing the calendar. I'm looking at the budget.
So when you're saying deals, like sound deals, music deals.
The sound deal is basically they're going to be doing all the sound editorial, all the effects, ADR, Foley,
and
mixing.
you're negotiating the cost.
Yes. If it's not already done, I will do that.
Do you do anything with like looking for who to go to for sound, music, and all that?
A lot of times I will ask the director, I like to be courteous and ask the director if they have somebody they've worked with before, if they would like me to reach out to that person. If not, I would love to recommend somebody.
Okay.
Because I've worked with many sound people.
So if I'm a director and I'm saying I need to know maybe how this visual effect is going to be done, and I don't have a visual effect guy or something, you're the person I talk to, or we need, the studio needs somebody to negotiate the cost of this. Like all that's your purview. Yeah,
and I would talk to the VFX vendor about what the director wants and said maybe we can have a meeting and get you guys together to discuss it.
Okay.
Or a lot of times when I'm doing sound and the director's concerned about a certain part of the movie and what it's going to sound like, I want him to get in there and go into the sound editor's room and listen to it before we mix it into the movie, because I don't want to hit a dead end at the mix,
right?
Because I I only have a certain amount of days to do the mix, and I want to make sure that the director has rehearsed anything with the sound people to make sure he's happy with the direction of the sound.
So there are a dozen different post-production departments, and you're the liaison between all of them.
I think that's a good
You're
way
the
to say
connector
it.
that connects.
Yeah, and post-production has evolved over the years. I mean, because think about the visual effects.
It's a lot more involved now.
Right. Think about AI. Think about all the digital stuff we're doing now. The digital intermediate, just that we're not on film anymore. The thing I like about post-production is it's constantly in flux. It's always changing, and my job is
growing.
always changing, and I'm learning more and more. And that's what's so great about it, okay? But you want the director to be happy. You want the director to feel satisfied. You want the director to feel that his editing, the cut is coming together the way he wants it, okay? A lot of times you need to find the right music editor to be able to deal with the sensibilities of the music for the show.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of times I have to find music editors, okay? And, it gets hard at times because we have a budget and I have to have companies work to those amount of money. So I have to negotiate that. So sometimes the budget can be great and you can have some cushion, and other times you have more challenging budgets.
I imagine your job looks very different from a $100 million movie to a $20 million movie. Those are very different kinds of projects.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you another example. Did a movie, we had our editor on it, and the director wanted to hire another editor, like a co-editor, to deal with basketball footage. And we didn't have that budgeted.
Right.
And that was a lot of work for me. And I had to work it out with the studio how they wanted me to structure it. And you have to find the money, and you need to make sure that, that they're living and they're not from the state and they have to be here. And it's
complicated.
Yes. But you get it done.
Yeah.
You get it done. And it comes together, but it's a lot of work.
That kind of goes into this other question that we have of how do you balance that? Balancing between editorial and then also the studio, the budget versus
because Lian and I talk about sometimes that like a movie has a lot of demands pulling on it. You've got the demands of the narrative, the demands of the director, the demands of the editor, the demands of the studio itself, the demands of the budget, the demands of the marketing department.
Yeah.
I mean, you can just feel all these people trying to pull on it. How do you balance something like the demands of
making everybody happy?
Yeah.
Well, the first thing I do is I get away from my desk and I go take a walk.
Sure.
Okay,
and I put on my music and I just go take a walk and I just leave the office and I just go think a little bit. And if I'm in a tense, stressed time, I just need some time by myself, okay? Because people are constantly coming into your office and asking you questions, okay?
Yeah.
Right.
So then I come back and things are more in order. But if somebody, say the director wants to do something, kind of like hiring another editor, like I told you.
Right.
I have to go to the studio, and I got to talk to the head of post-production. And I have to have a conversation with him first and say, this is what he wants, and then we have a conversation, and I also bring the producers into it, and we talk about it on the phone, not on email, not on text, so we can really discuss it, okay?
Of course.
So we usually do a conference call and resume, and we say whether is it possible? Can we find the money? Can we move some money around to cover this? How many weeks? Stuff like that, So we always hope there's a way to work it out, but sometimes you can't make everybody happy.
Right.
Because you have parameters and you got to stick to them.
You have to,
So sometimes you have to say, no, I can't do that. Or I got it worked out. But I've had to say no, and sometimes I'll say that's above my pay grade, and I tried to work it out, negotiate it with the studio, but if that's something you really want, I think you need to talk to the producers and see if that's something they want to fight for, and talk to the studio about it. That comes above me, okay?
Okay.
So I can only advise.
So kind of even the same way that editors and assistant editors, our job first and foremost is to support the vision of the director up to the point that we can't. And then you just say, I've done the best that I can about this, and if you can't do it, then you can't do it, and then you have to work within the limitations of that.
Nobody wants limitations. Nobody wants to hear no.
Yeah.
Okay. Nobody wants to hear that we don't have the money. People don't find that's
not practical,
productive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Sometimes they want us to work the impossible. And
sometimes you do. I've been on movies where sometimes the impossible.
Yes.
Up to the last moment, you think something's not going to happen.
Yes.
And something changes.
That's what makes me like what I do. If I can make something work,
Yeah.
it's accomplishment.
That I'm sure that's a rewarding thing,
It is.
especially to be in that position where, like, you know, a director or somebody wants something to happen. It would be really good for the movie. It'd be really good for this. And you know, it's not going to happen. You think it's not going to happen. And then by some clever way of you figuring it out, you can get it done. And that's got to be rewarding to be like, a different post supervisor may not have made this happen.
Right.
The movie may not have been as good as this is going to be if I hadn't been here to help mitigate this
That's
thing.
what's so nice.
That is the best.
And when they say thank
feeling.
you, they say thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
Gratification sometimes goes a long way.
Yeah.
I was doing, remember the movie The Perks of Being a Wallflower? And
Yeah.
I'm doing that film, and we're having lunch one day, and me and the director and his assistant were having lunch in Culver City or something, and he was thanking me that I found the movie was very geared with music. Music was huge in this movie. It was like another character. And he was thanking me about recommending our music editor because he goes, I don't know what we'd have done without her. And that just made me feel good that he trusted me.
Yeah.
And when you get the trust of a filmmaker, it really puts you over the moon. You know, it's nice because a lot of times you don't really get that thanks. And when you do, you know, or when a director wants to work with you again, you feel like, you know, that's huge.
Yeah, you know you made a difference. Every time you know you made a difference.
I can't do the movie without you, Eric, or please do the movie. And I'm like, of course. I'm flattered that you want me back.
Yeah.
You know, and because a lot of times you don't get that repeat business. And, you know, they hire somebody else and you get a little discouraged.
Right.
Because you're like, I thought I had a really nice relationship with that person, and why am I not doing their next movie? But that's just the way the business is. You know, you don't know the other politics that we're playing a part in it.
Right.
But you're still disappointed. You hope you still can maintain a relationship with that person, even if you're not doing the movie. But I've learned to deal with that stuff as I've grown in the business and not be as sensitive. But it's hard. You have to have thick walls. Just know it's a business. And you know what? You'll be working on something else. If I did that movie with him, I wouldn't have been able to do that movie.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
You appreciate the time you had. You appreciate the time spent.
I do. I do. It's kind of like I did a TV series a few years ago, and it seemed like everybody was happy with the job I did. I enjoyed it, and it did great, but I didn't get season 2. And I was a little like, what did I...
What happened?
What did I do? What did I do wrong? You know, it's like, but hey, I did the first season and it did great. Everybody seemed to be happy with the job I did.
You get to be proud of the work.
And I learned a lot about television.
Yeah.
And I got a lot out of it. No regrets.
So to kind of pivot to one of the other questions here, again, we kind of gear this podcast towards people who don't really know about a lot of this stuff. So if you were talking to, I hesitate to say the word kid, but a young person who...
Yeah, I just did that the other night.
There you go. You're talking to like somebody who's a post-PA, right? And maybe they've just finished post-PAing or they're about to post-PA or they're in the middle of post-PAing. I think a lot of times, you know, post-PAs are... you know, kind of do encounter this almost branching path between editorial and post-producing. And they kind of have to pick one or the other. Really.
Now, that also includes if they want to even be like in music or sound.
Sure, yeah.
Because I've had people that have become music editors and I've had people that have become sound editors.
100%.
Okay, yeah.
But from your perspective, if you were talking to this young person who's like, I know I like post-production, kind of in the similar boat that you're in. I know I like post-production. I know I like these people. I know I like working with this general cohort of people. But I can't decide whether or not I want to take that next step to become an assistant editor or a post coordinator or something like that.
Right.
How would you help that person make that decision? How would you help that person? Like, what would you say to that person to, you know, being on your side of the table now, I guess having done both and being married to an assistant editor, how do you look at these two jobs and what's the personality matrix that aligns with both?
Okay. I would first have to say, like, you need to really figure out which one you want because it's a totally different world. I mean, if you're editing, you're basically in a room by yourself and you're cutting and you're doing all that kind of stuff. Okay. If you're in post-production and you want to be a coordinator, you're dealing with people, you're dealing with issues, problems, you have to solutions. Okay. But it's more of a people job. Are you good with people? Do you communicate well? Because a lot of times if you're assistant editing, you're really a lot of times you're just by yourself in your cutting room doing your job.
It's great. It's about myself.
So you're almost distilling it down to like, are you a project person or a people person?
Right, because there was a time that I was thinking about being a music editor or an assistant editor, but I didn't want to go that route because I felt that I would have been a little too isolated. That would have been too little isolating for me. Yeah. My strength in this business has been the way I talk to people, I feel, and it's gotten me to I feel where I am. So I am a people person, and I love talking to people. I love dealing with people. I love solving problems, solutions. That's what you need to figure out, whether you want to do A or B. That's what I had to deal with to figure out. Because I had a music editor come to me back in the mid-'90s who asked me if I wanted to become his assistant and become a music editor. And he was a very seasoned music editor, and we had a very, very good relationship. And he asked me if I wanted to do that. And I said, wow. I'm like, geez. I said, this is a huge offer. I mean, I was really flattered. And I said, can I think about it? Because of course you could think about it. So, I slept on it. And I said, next day I said, thank you so much for the offer, but I think I'm going to stay in the post-production avenue I want to go. And I think I want to be a post-supervisor and, deal with that. So he understood, and that was fine, But you have to know where your strengths lie.
And then from post-PA, if you do want to go the post-producing route, then it would be looking for a post-coordinator job, or kind of move up that way.
Or a post-assistant, or
post-assistant.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. You may have to be a PA, a post-PA on another show again. You know, I mean, it took me a while to get from being a post-PA to actually not driving all over town anymore. It took me years, and I was like, when am I going to not drive anymore? And when I PA'd my first year, I put 30,000 miles on my car.
Yeah.
I mean, I was, and PA, the post people are not driving like they used to anymore, because now you can send things through the internet. There was no internet.
Right.
You could send WeTransfers. Okay.
Yeah, right.
You were driving tape and
I was taking film and schlepping reels and 3/4 tapes to stages,
delivering packages.
Yes. You couldn't do PDF documents. I had to go deal with payroll. I had to bring payroll to the payroll company.
Yeah.
So the technology.
Yeah.
Okay. I used to have to stop and use a phone booth to call the production company. I didn't have a cell phone.
Yeah.
We didn't dream of that. The only people that had cell phones in those days were the people that were the rich people that had them in the cars.
Yeah.
Kind of on that line, if you're someone is starting out as a post PA, what's your advice to them being a post PA? I feel like it's interesting because I feel like I have a lot of advice that I give to post PAs, but that's from an editorial perspective of like, go do this and go talk to this assistant editor and do this. So
you have to be smart. You have to prioritize. You have to listen. You got to use your head. Okay. Yeah. It's not an easy job.
No.
Okay. And it's come a lot more evolved now with more technology. Okay?
It's also I tell people it's very Mr. Miyagi. You'll be like, you'll be getting lunches and you're like, this is below me. I learned how to do it. It's like, you don't understand that. Like, getting lunches is not about getting lunches. It's about your attention to detail.
That's right. Who gets this? Who doesn't get cheese on their burger?
Exactly. Do you remember this? How often do you mess this up? When you do mess up, what do you do to mitigate your failures?
Right. Yeah. That's exactly right. And I've had post PAs do loads of things, and so they could learn.
Right.
I've had them put line scripts together. I've had them help me with ADR, and I've helped them kind of learn how to do POs. I don't want them just to think that they're just getting craft service and going to the market or stuff like that. I want them to understand that they're part of the process. We need their help. Like an assistant editor may say, I need you to look on the cut and kind of look at this and see where maybe something like this is here, like that. And they love stuff like that, because it helps them say, do I want to do this? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then there's been times that sometimes I've had to talk to post PAs and, because sometimes editors can complain and I have to talk to them and kind of say, you may want to maybe not talk so much. You may want to listen a little bit more because people are kind of getting a little irritated and I'm just trying to help you. Right. I want you to keep this job. Okay. So just try to learn from what I'm telling you. Okay. And they're like, okay. So a lot of times it improves and other times it doesn't improve and we have to let them go. But it's how a cutting room could be. It gets tense, and I don't want to fire anybody.
So you'd say your number one advice is listen, pay attention, listen, understand what's going on. Don't try to figure out how you can be a part of the puzzle.
Yeah, and play the politics well.
Yeah.
Okay, you learn a lot about politics as a PA. You really do, because what happens is you're sitting like right there, and everybody's talking around you.
Right.
Listen, learn.
Wow.
I'd love for you to talk about that more. I feel like I didn't realize the amount of politics that happened in editing. I notice this especially with directors as well. You watch them and you're like, wow. and seeing the difference between a director who understands politics and a director who doesn't understand politics, you go, oh my God, there's half of this job none of you talk about in interviews, which is mitigating the politics of a cutting room and understanding the people that walk into a cutting room and what they want and what they need and how you can provide that or push against it in a way that will keep a movie together is amazing to watch. And it's one of those things I never even thought about. But then when you're in a cutting room watching an editor play politics, a director play, and when they're playing politics together and they know how they need to get something done, right? And they've got somebody coming into the cutting room and they need to get something edited. Watching them work, it's amazing. It's incredible.
Well, you hope the director and the editor are on the same page.
And when they're not, it's
not good.
It's not good.
What happens then is then the directors are thinking about wanting to replace the editor if they're not on the same page. Because a lot of times directors are not working with the editor that they usually work with.
Yes.
Okay. And the other thing that I dread is when the director comes in my room and closes the door, and I'm like, oh no, what?
Yeah. What are you about to say?
What now?
Oh no.
They close the door, they sit on the couch, and like, Eric, I'm like, yes, what is it? Because I know people. I know when they want to talk, and I have to start the session. Okay, let's discuss it. And I want to try to help them and make solutions so they feel better. Because, directors carry a lot on their shoulders, okay? And they go home at night, and they think about their movie, and they want to make sure that they're doing the right job, and they're happy with the cut.
Yep.
And I want to make them feel good. Yeah. So when they come in and they close the door, I hope when they leave, they're feeling better, you know? And, it's like sometimes you're like a therapist. Yeah. And you want them to trust you and you want them to be able to come to you.
100%.
That's very complimenting. I find that to be a nice compliment, okay? Then there's directors you work with that never talk to you. Yeah. Okay? They really don't get to know you. They don't trust you. And that's hard. Okay, and I've been in situations like that, and that makes it really disconcerting, and it makes you feel like, what am I doing here? Yeah. If the director doesn't trust me and just keeps running to the producer is not here. I'm here.
I'm your liaison.
Come to me. Come to the post supervisor. Let me help you.
Yeah.
And if you don't get that, it's really like a lost battle, and you go home at night feeling really distraught and beat up. I mean, I've come home from movies where I'm just defeated. I mean, it's but trust. You get that trust from those people that you work with. It's a wonderful thing.
Even as like an assistant, I still feel like that there's some politics that you still 100%. Have to kind of deal with.
No, of course. And the best assistants are the ones who can read the room and understand the politics, and they can understand how can I best support the director and the editor right now in the actions that I can take and the words that I can say and the things that I can do. And then that even filters down to the post PA.
But you learn that through experience.
There's times where
you learn.
The director and the editor have edited something and they love it and they think it's great, but they're nervous that the producer's not going to like it. And the producer comes and says, well, I like this, but I don't know, maybe this is a little weird. Let's have the post PA come in here and look at this. And then the post PA comes in and it rides on the post PA. What does the post PA think about this cut? And being in that position, being that post PA, being like, I know right now the people that have trusted me need me, and they need me to support them, or they need me to give a honest feedback, but I need to give it in a way where that I can walk out of this room unscathed, and I can help make this movie the best way possible. Even politics comes down to there. It's like, can you be that situation to understand what you need? Well,
sometimes sometimes they embrace that, and sometimes they don't.
Yeah, no.
So sometimes the editor could come to the post supervisor and say, why is the PA giving notes on the cut? And I'm like, what happened? And they'll tell me the situation. He or she'll tell me the situation. I'm like, well, did the director ask the PA to come in and do that? Yes. And I'm like, well, what can I tell you? The only thing I can say is just let it go, or just maybe have a conversation with the director about it. But other than that, I don't know what else to say. If the director wanted that person to come in and do that, I know. I get it. I understand. It's kind of like being on a mix stage and the post PA raises their hand and says, I think you should raise the music there, okay?
Right.
And then mixers say, be quiet.
Yeah. There's also instances where I have been an assistant, and even in the editorial, there's like still the politics of the hierarchy of having to be like, okay, I'm a second, then there's the first, and then there's the editor, and like, where's the boundary of a second, like how I don't want to step over, but I also want to show that I do a good job, but I also want to be like forward thinking,
smart.
you know, it's
You're being
like,
smart.
yeah.
You're being smart. I mean, if I'm on a mix stage, I'm not going to say anything about the mix, okay? I'm not one of the creatives. If they ask me, then I'll say something. If not, I keep my mouth shut. I just want to get the day done and everybody go home and then come back the next day.
And I know, and sometimes my skill set is different depending on the room that I'm in. Like if I'm in a mix stage, I'm not great at like understanding mixed stuff at this point in my career. I go and I'm like, they'll be like, that's too loud. And I'm like, I didn't think it was that loud. But then like they'll fix it and you go, you're right, that was too loud. Like I'm learning. So when I'm on a mix stage, I shut up because I'm like, I don't know what the hell is I'm learning.
Well, you're
like,
learning.
But in a cutting room, you start to get to a point where you're like, I feel more confident in this. And I'm going to go against the grain here. I'm going to say something, but I think this is going to be good. This is going to be good for the movie, or this is going to be good for the politics. And sometimes you're right and sometimes you're wrong, and you learn. You know?
So then pivoting, I wanted to talk about what it was like having a family.
This is our dating podcast
in
part
the
of the show.
industry.
This is our...
Well, your wife was an assistant, so
Yes.
she understood the
She
business
understood my
as well.
hours, yes.
Understood your hours.
Yes.
What was that like dating and then getting, like, you were both really busy. So how did you
Yeah, we were
guys
both
kind of
busy.
balance
We were
that?
both making a paycheck. A lot of times Andy and I were working at the same studio so we can carpool. It was great.
Okay. Yeah.
And then, things changed. And we started having daughters. We have 2 daughters. And, Andy wanted to be a full-time mom. And I said, great, as long, hopefully, I can afford it, everything on my salary. And so I stayed in the biz, and she and I were so new to being parents, we didn't understand. Like, she would try to wait for me to come home from work, and my daughter would be crying. And I was like, honey, why every time I come home from work is she crying? I don't know. I think she's crying because you're not home. It was because she hadn't eaten.
you guys were waiting to do dinner at 9 o'clock.
Yeah. They weren't feeding. She wasn't feeding her. And she finally realized it, okay? So then they would eat, and I would come home and just eat later, and it was fine. I said fine, but I got used to it. Sometimes I would be able to come home at a normal hour, okay? And then our second daughter came. And then it got harder because, I have 2 little kids, and it's, and
how far apart are they in age?
25 months.
Okay.
So
once she was, because did you adopt both of them?
No.
Okay.
Brooke we adopted from China.
Yeah.
So she was 1. Then Avery came a year later.
Okay, right. Yeah.
So we didn't have the first year with Brooke. We had the first year with Avery, and it was tough. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's raising kids. Okay. So in the meantime, I'm working and I'm coming home, and my wife would always have a lay plate for me.
We like to dive into this because I feel like, we mentioned Lian and I.
If anybody wants to be parents in
Yes,
the industry and have a family.
We met at this young assistant editor event, and I think it's a common discussion among people our age, and assistant editing is like, they think about, I work these crazy hours, I do this crazy job. How can I be a mom? How can I be a dad? Or even just go so far as to be like, how can I find a wife? How can I find a husband in when I work these crazy hours? Like, I think it's helpful to get people's stories about how they made it work.
Well, that's why it's so wonderful that I met my wife in the film industry, okay? Because we did something that was so similar, and she understands what I do. A lot of the time now, people are online dating, and you want to try to meet somebody that has similar interests and does the same kind of thing that you do, right? But that doesn't always happen, okay? So Andy wanted to be full-time mom, and she's a wonderful mother, and she was very attentive to the children. I think it's great because if she was working, the kids would have been in daycare, and I don't feel that, I think that would have been harder. You don't have as much time with your children that way. So Andy was with the kids constantly, 24/7, right? So I'd come home at night, and a lot of times they'd be asleep. Okay. So I see them in the morning, they'd be up early, and we'd spend time together, and the weekends were great. We'd all go to Target together and all that kind of stuff, and the market, and I'd be there. I wouldn't hopefully be working on the weekend. And that was the time for me to be with my kids. And then as they got older, they were staying up later, and we were eventually able to sit down and have dinner as a family, and they'd be doing their homework. Now, it's funny because they grow fast, okay? So like when I used to come home, they'd run to me when I would open the door, right? As they were teenagers, I'd come home. The only thing that would run to me would be the dog, okay? So I'd go, Andy, where are the girls? No, they're in their room doing homework. And I'm like, I'd walk and I'd go, hi, girls. Hi, Dad. That was it.
And that was it.
So that's how it works.
Yeah.
And you get used to it, and your kids understand. They understand that this is what you do. But no, I have a wonderful relationship with my daughters. And then, there were times that I was in between jobs. And when I was in between jobs, not working as a freelancer, I got to spend more time. I'd help my wife. I'd maybe take them to school or pick them up from school, take them to dance class. So I would be able to be with them where I could. So it all works. We all do it. You guys will do it. It's just how life is. It's just an occupation.
I think that's most of our questions, unless you've got anything else you want to plug. Or
I hope I was able to give you enough of a well-rounded.
Oh, definitely.
picture.
No, I thought that was brilliant.
It was great. It was great.
I did forget to mention when I said about sound and the DI is a huge part too. Remember the DI and the visual effects. Okay, so that's a big thing too.
Now, are you also talking with the vendors because you
constantly?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You have the visual effects.
We'll have to work out the schedule with the hours.
Yeah.
For the DIs, and I have to make sure the DP, if he's in town, if he can do that,
come in for color sessions,
or if not, I have to get him something to look at on his computer where he is, like on Hitman, we had to send the DP, he was in London doing another movie, so we had to send him, and I was sending everybody, I had to do a feed for the guys, when I'm doing a Richard Linklater movie, they're all in Austin. So I was working with Light Iron in Hollywood, okay, because we did our dailies through their New Orleans company, because Panavision and Light Iron have a New Orleans. And we shot New Orleans for the tax. We had a tax incentive there for Hitman. Okay, part of the deal was that we had to do the Light Iron here in Hollywood for the DI. So I was the only one here. So I had to make sure that they were seeing everything in Austin with the visual effects incorporated into it. Yeah, the timing, everything. Okay.
Yeah.
Basically, it worked out fine because with the technology of the internet and how they can send, they need to be able to see apples to apples to what they're seeing on the DI stage. Looking at it on a monitor.
Yeah, we did that on Don't Look Up. We I think it was COVID at the time. It was a big spike of like Omicron or Delta or something like that. So Company 3 wasn't allowing anybody to come in.
Right.
So we had to do all of our color sessions through an iPad Pro. And they were like, I happen to have an iPad Pro that I was using.
Yes.
And they're like, Michael, can we borrow your iPad for Adam to look at this? And then Company 3 sent like extensive guidelines of like the brightness has to be set to exactly 83%, and this thing has to be exactly all these things, and you're like, okay, and you're doing it all perfectly.
Gets a little crazy.
But
now that you're working with Linklater, I feel like you're gonna be working from home a lot. Right?
If they stay in Austin, Texas, which I think they are, yes, and they are a pleasure to work with. They're a wonderful group.
Yeah,
they are. I just saw Dazed and Confused for the first time, like a few months ago. It was great. I had a blast.
On top of their game, the editorial department, they're wonderful, great people. Producer's a good guy. It's nice in this business to work with people you really meld with. It makes all the difference in the world. Yeah. And when people appreciate each other, it just goes so far. And people say thank you, and it's a pleasure. We all just want to try to do the best job we can and make the film as best it can be, or TV show as best it can be. And
it's so nice when you are on a movie and the movie is good and you're sitting there and you're doing it and everything else melds away. You're not thinking no longer about the politics. You're not thinking about the budget. No. You're not thinking about the schedule there's some of those little pockets of time where like all of these things melt away, and you get to just be there with a group of people, and you get to feel like, look at this thing.
Yeah, they forget about all the bullshit.
Yeah.
They forget about all the bullshit.
Exactly. You get to just be like, you just sit there and you watch.
Like, it's a pleasure.
All right. Well, thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for having me. It really, you guys asked some great questions.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
I cannot wait to hear this. It's nice. I hope that the community out there will learn from a lot of what you guys are doing.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping for.
And I'm really flattered that you asked me to do this.
Of course.
there's I have a lot of colleagues. I mean, they could give you a whole different take on it,
No, and I think even as we've been doing this, every time you get different perspectives, people could have the same job and have two completely different ways that they tackled their career, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's valuable to hear.
All right. So thank you, Eric, for coming and being our guest on this podcast. We appreciate all of the insight.
Well, all the best of being here.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Sips and Clips, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Sips and Clips is a podcast produced by Lian McFalls and Michael Schusterman. Graphic by Max Schulman. Sound mixing by Zach Griffin. Follow us on Instagram at Sips and Clips Pod. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe.